T.J. Allen served in the United States Army for close to a decade. Here at home, he spent close to 8 years serving our community. Now he wants to take both of those experiences to Washington to become the next congressman for the 1st Congressional District. I speak exclusively to TJ for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. TJ Allen, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing just great here. I know that obviously you are a low country man. You have served honorably in our United States Army for close to a decade. And I know that you have been a productive member of the Charleston community, as I mentioned, for at least 8 years. You have also worked as a defense contractor and a leading member of several charity organizations. But now I understand that you want to run to become the next congressman for the 1st Congressional District. Why TJ Allen? Why now?
Why now? Because we had a problem with our government in Afghanistan. That's primarily what has prompted this run. As you could see on the news, Afghanistan was a disaster. The withdrawal was botched, and that could have been easily prevented. But our Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, isn't doing much to address that. She wants to have years-long investigations, and I don't think that's the right course of action.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Which elected officials over the past 20 years, that is, do you hold responsible for the debacle in Afghanistan?
All of them, to be honest with you. We got into a war we didn't need to be in. Our cause was righteous at the beginning, but it devolved into a quagmire with no way to get out. So then we started negotiating with the Taliban, which was against our policy of not negotiating with terrorists. That continued all the way until the current president, and then we surrendered. We withdrew all of our troops without getting our equipment and our civilians out first.
What type of investigation would you have right now into what's currently going on in Afghanistan?
I don't think we really need an investigation, to be honest with you. I think it played out on TV. We saw who was responsible, and I think we need to be calling for resignations instead of investigations.
I know that on your website you said this quote, TJ served the United States Army for almost a decade. During this time, he learned that no matter the circumstances, wrong or right, our word is our bond. When you look at Afghanistan, TJ, what military circumstances were wrong?
Well, we had Donald Trump decided he was going to withdraw the troops, which I commended. I commended Biden for following through on that. But Trump had preconditions in place that said all of our civilians were going to be out. And additionally, the Taliban would not harbor additional terrorist groups, and they would not allow for violent acts to be perpetrated on our soldiers. With the deaths of 13 service members in Afghanistan 2 or 3 weeks ago, obviously that agreement was broken. But Biden still trudged along with his withdrawal, and we still have some Americans over in Afghanistan.
What type of preconditions are ideal right now?
Ideal, well, what can we do right now? We don't have any assets on the ground. Biden, the administration at large, authorized a drone strike. We know now that killed an aid worker and 7 of his children. Without assets on the ground to really confirm that intelligence, what can we do? It's kind of a lost cause at this point.
And what assets should they have right now?
What? Excuse me?
What assets should they have had?
Just people on the ground. We had soldiers on the ground that collected human intelligence. We had CIA operatives and probably, intelligence operatives. We don't have that anymore. All of our diplomatic guys, all of our intelligence guys, all of our soldiers are gone.
And obviously, there's a big debacle right now about General Milley and obviously his conversations with the officials in China. Should General Milley testify before Congress in your mind?
General Milley should testify before Congress, but General Milley should also resign his position. If any of that report is true, that he subverted our civilian leadership, i.e. the President of the United States, and aided and abetted the enemy, which is treason, then he should resign and be court-martialed.
And I went ahead of myself, but let's go back to Afghanistan. It is. Which elected officials, TJ, over the past 20 years, do you hold responsible for the debacle in Afghanistan?
Really, all of them. Everybody's played a hand in this. We went to war in Afghanistan with the right intentions. However, it quickly became a quagmire because we didn't have a solid mission plan in place. We had a very vague idea of what we wanted to do, which was to eliminate Al Qaeda and prevent them from using Afghanistan as a launching pad for future terrorist attacks. But how do you really do that without an occupation? So we've been this occupational force for 20 years, and meanwhile, ever since Bush was out of office, we've been negotiating with the Taliban, which I also don't agree with. Right now, we should be recognizing Afghanistan's legitimate government and not the Taliban as the legitimate government.
Who should they bring to the table that makes sure that they're a legitimate government?
I don't have an answer for that right now because, as you know, their government collapsed. The only person that seems to be upholding any sort of resistance is the vice president, who has declared himself to be the legitimate leader of Afghanistan, but I haven't heard anything out of him in a while. Afghanistan de facto rules the country, and that's kind of our fault.
And I'm going to get back to that in a few, but let me turn down to the South. Congressman Nancy Mace says this about our southern border. She says this, quote, "Our southern border is under assault. Criminals and traffickers are emboldened and unafraid. We need real bipartisan solutions to the crisis on the border." TJ, let me ask you this. What's your plan for comprehensive immigration reform?
I liked Donald Trump's stay in Mexico policy, to be honest with you, while immigrants were waiting to get their asylum hearings and court dates. I think that should be re-implemented. It seemed to be doing a really good job of keeping illegal immigrants out of the country, or undocumented immigrants, however you want to say it. But right now, we don't even have we've got basically a catch and release program. Illegal immigrants are coming into the country, they're caught, they're given a court date, and they're allowed to go wherever they want to, and possibly never be seen or heard from again. That's not acceptable.
Is the southern border issue both a security and health issue?
Absolutely. Not only it's a security issue because we don't know who these people are. They could be anybody. They could be terrorists. They could be drug traffickers, human traffickers, really anybody. And it's a health issue because we're not even screening these people for COVID. We're in the middle of a Delta wave of COVID now. It's really serious. There's a lot of people getting sick and dying, but we're not testing anybody at the border for COVID. We're not enforcing vaccine mandates for them. We're not doing anything. We're just letting them go.
Speaking of vaccine mandates, should vaccines be voluntary?
Yes. Without question, vaccine participation should be 100% mandatory. I don't believe in vaccine mandates from the federal government. I don't believe the federal government should be mandating anything.
And let me get back over to, obviously, the southern border. I'm kind of mixing up a little bit, but bear with me. If in Congress today, TJ, how would you pass a comprehensive immigration reform so that employers in the low country here in the 1st Congressional District can hire the workers they need, who then can get paid tax, who then can pay taxes and lift our country up?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. If in Congress today, how would you pass a comprehensive immigration reform so that employers in the 1st Congressional District can hire the workers they need, who then can pay taxes and lift our country up?
I don't think we really need additional immigration reform. I think we need to enforce the laws that are on the books. We've got thousands of laws about this on the books, and what's one more going to do? We need to enforce the laws that we already have.
And I know that the federal government is, as you mentioned about COVID and the border recently, is reportedly cutting the supply of monoclonal antibody treatment here in South Carolina. Is that treatment, in your mind, effective here in the 1st Congressional District?
It seems to be. I haven't done the research. I'm not a medical doctor, but from what I understand, that the monoclonal antibodies are very effective, like Regeneron, at treating COVID-19 symptoms. And if that's an effective treatment, then we should absolutely be funding and supplying that to COVID patients.
And how should they fund this right now?
I believe we have some funds left over from the COVID relief packages. Then why not use those?
And what letter would you write right now to the governor, Governor McMaster, in as far as getting these treatments to those patients, particularly here in the first congressional district?
I'm not real sure. This is not something that I've researched very fully, and I don't really have an answer for you, but I can get back to you on it.
Okay, and I know Congressman Nancy Mace, and here I am switching over to taxes. She says this quote, "The left is attempting to push through the largest tax hike in American history. Despite a stalled economy and record high inflation, $3 trillion plus in tax increases will send jobs overseas, lower wages, lower benefits, and make the cost of everything go up. Do you believe, TJ, that the top 0.008% will send jobs overseas if their taxes go up 3%?
Yes. We've seen back in 2016, after Trump won the election and we were waiting on his inauguration, Barack Obama said, "What magic wand does Donald Trump have to bring the jobs back?" That magic wand was lowering taxes, and particularly the corporate tax rate from the highest in the industrialized world to somewhere in the middle at 21%. So yeah, we saw businesses giving bonuses of $1,000 to their employees when that tax rate came down. They hired more, they invested in their employees, and tax rates affect businesses greatly, even a 3% increase. So yeah, it does stifle job creation. It does stifle small business, especially who can't afford that tax increase.
I know the Democrats are reportedly pushing a tax hike for the top 1%, which they are willing to pay. If the Republican Party were to pass these bills, TJ, do you believe the country would be better off?
If the Republican Party passed the tax hike bill,
these particular bills that the Democrats are reportedly pushing a tax hike, do you believe the country would be better off?
No, I don't. I think we need to lower taxes. I think we need to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. We are not in any position to raise taxes with inflation doing what it is. We're not. I mean, I understand the federal government needs money to operate. But this is not the right time for a tax increase, not when so many of our people are unemployed, not when so many of our people are underemployed, facing a lot of money going out due to inflation. Why would we strangle their ability to participate in the economy?
What is the current unemployment rate here in the first congressional district?
I'm not sure.
Okay, how many jobs have been lost in this district since COVID?
I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. It's something I haven't researched.
Where exactly in the district do you hope to attract, create, and really retain jobs?
Our industrial sectors are doing really, really well right now. We've attracted businesses in the past 10 years, such as Boeing, Volvo, Mercedes, things like that, which have really created job increases and well-paying jobs here in the Low Country. And I'd like to attract more of that, more manufacturing jobs.
Manufacturing jobs, yes, sir. Historically, what are the highest marginal income tax rates?
I couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Okay, when it comes to obviously the tax hikes and all this, whose interests political leaders are actually protecting right now in your mind?
I'm really not sure, because they're billing it as a tax increase on the rich, which a lot of people that aren't in that 1% or 20% bracket think is them paying their quote unquote fair share. But if you look at the tax tables, the rich are already paying their fair share. The rich accumulate about 21% of the income, but they pay about 40% of the total taxes. In my mind, they are paying their fair share. Plus, rich people are the ones that make the jobs. They're the ones that hire people to do work for them. So I think it's disingenuous to bill tax increases as the rich paying their fair share. I think we need to educate people more on who is paying the taxes and what percentage of those taxes they're paying.
Will taxes retract the economy or cause the economy to expand, causing inflation?
I don't think the taxes will cause an inflation at all. Inflation comes from creating more money, which is what the Biden administration wants to do with their $3.5 trillion spending package, which creates and raises the debt ceiling, which creates money out of thin air. But I think taxes are inflation neutral.
So, do you believe inflation is easing?
Is easy?
Is it easing?
No, not presently. Not with the current mode of government where they want to increase spending, and then hopefully increase taxes to pay for all of it. Increasing spending, like I said, pumps more money into the economy, sure, but it lessens the value of every dollar in your wallet.
Now, to be fair, how much did the deficit increase with the last administration?
Some $4 trillion, I believe. I don't have the exact figure, but it did increase quite a bit, and I wasn't happy about it. The pundits seemed to forget that they were fiscally conservative once Donald Trump got elected, and kind of gave him a pass on it. But he increased the deficit several $1 trillion, and that was not a good thing either.
I know that the chief of staff to President Biden says the administration's $3.5 trillion infrastructure plan would, quote, cost zero, unquote. What's missing here, TJ?
I'm not sure. He's open to pass tax hikes to pay for the pay-fors. With the $3.5 trillion, I don't think we're in a position where we need to be adding $3.5 trillion to the national debt, even with the pay-fors. It's just not smart business.
Do you believe that the last 1.9 trillion infrastructure plan has had time to actually be funded?
No, I don't. I don't know where they got the money for that, but it also went straight onto our national debt. Again, hopefully with tax increases, they can pay for it, but that burdens the average American family.
And this might be a redundant question as well, TJ, but would this 3.5 trillion infrastructure plan lead to a hyperinflation?
I suppose it could. Not an economist, haven't looked into. I don't believe they've even really gotten it written yet. But printing that much money is obviously going to do something to our economy, and it can't be all good.
Okay, well, how much of the price of goods and services do you believe will actually be raised because of this?
Not sure. Right now, we're seeing 60% increases on some goods and services. Some goods and services, such as lumber, are up 200, 300%. Who knows where it could go?
And let's fast forward. Do you foresee Medicare actually going bankrupt in 2026?
Not something I've researched. Not even on my radar right at the moment, but I could look into it.
Now, with all of this tax talk about, obviously the infrastructure plan and the tax increase on the richest, how would you fix those tax codes and actually the loopholes if elected to Congress?
Well, what I would like to do is see a fair or flat tax. Everybody pays the same rate, regardless of how much you make, somewhere in the vicinity of 12 or 13%. You make $1, you pay 13 cents. And that's as simple as it gets. You could write your taxes on a postcard. Ted Cruz advocated for this when he ran for president in 2016. I like it. It's a great plan. That way, it's just simple. There's none of this, do the rich pay their fair share or not? Everybody pays the same amount.
And speaking of money, let's come back here to the 1st Congressional District. What exactly is the average household income for an average person here in the 1st Congressional District?
I'm not sure. The national average is about $30,000 for individuals. The low country may be a little bit higher. I'm not entirely sure what that number is.
How much has the economy grown in this district in the past 2 years?
Not sure.
Okay. How much tax revenue has the district actually lost in 2 years?
Not sure.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. What are the demographics here in the 1st Congressional District?
Not sure.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. How many infrastructure projects have been completed in the past 4 years?
Big ones. I mean, we're still waiting on the James Island connector or the Johns Island connector to be finished,
Yeah, 526.
or the 26 extension. That's been on the books for 20 years. But construction goes on everywhere. I see it all the time. Everywhere you go in the Low Country, there's something being done. And I think that's good. I can't tell you the exact number, but
No
things
worries.
are being worked on. Things are being improved.
Well, let me get back to your campaign because you said this on your website, quote, TJ values integrity within himself and expects it from others. How should constituents in the 1st Congressional District hold you accountable if you're elected?
Well, there's always the ballot box, and I would definitely engage in community outreach to make sure that my constituents know what's going on. There are several congressmen who post every vote they do on Facebook. I enjoy that idea. I like it. That way they know exactly where I stand, and I'm not trying to hide anything.
As a matter of fact, you said this quote, you need a conservative representative in Congress that will listen to your ideas no matter which side of the issue you fall on. What current ideas are you listening to when it comes to the constituents here in this district?
So far, I've engaged a lot with people on Facebook. I haven't really got out to many events, but we have dialogues. We have about all kinds of issues, such as abortion, a woman's right to choose. We have conversations about the current administration. We have conversations about taxes. I'm willing to listen to those ideas and maybe they can influence my decisions on some things. I don't want to be seen as necessarily a moderate. I'm definitely a conservative, but there's no reason that we can't listen to ideas and then let those ideas reflect the way we vote in Congress.
How does your values match their ideas, meaning the constituent ideas?
Mhm. My values are grounded in libertarianism. I believe in liberty above everything. That includes economic liberty, personal liberty. Some people I've found aren't, they want the government to take over their lives in some respect. They want the government to tell them what to do. I don't agree with that at all. So sometimes we butt heads a little bit, as is expected in politics. Everybody's got a little bit different of an opinion, but that's okay. We need a good dialogue and discourse in this country.
And let me go over to that. You said this quote, if we join together and make our voices heard, we can fight for the change we want to see. What change have you made with your voice over the past 2 years for this district?
None. I haven't. My resume includes charity work. Includes defense contracting. I haven't been a community organizer. I haven't. My influence with the federal government is nil, apparently. I've talked to I've attempted to contact Nancy Mace to make that voice heard. I don't know if it has or not, and that's one of the reasons I'm running. But I haven't really been involved with any of that.
Now, I know you've attempted to contact Nancy Mace. Do you agree with her stance on her views on Afghanistan?
No, I don't really know her views on Afghanistan. Obviously, she feels that something was wrong, something happened very wrongly, but I don't agree with her methodology for holding people accountable, as she would say. She wants to have a lot of investigations to figure out what happened. I feel pretty confident that we saw what happened play out on TV. We need accountability now, not at some distant, unknown point in the future.
And a lot of people say, hey, Secretary Blinken needs to resign. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
And I know that you said this quote, Washington can be a harsh and foreboding environment. But then, TJ, let me ask you, how will you survive?
Well, I stand on my principles. and we don't defer from that. We don't. That's how you survive anything. You say, this is the way it is. This is what's happening. This is the way. This is my opinion of it, and we don't waver from that conviction.
And you said this too, quote, in today's world of highly partisan politics, it takes real backbone to stand up for what you believe and to see through it to the end. What backbone do you have?
As a soldier in the United States Army, I went through 2 deployments in Iraq. I never shied away from my responsibilities and doing what I had to do. That's where my just personal courage, really, to do what needs to be done and not let negative voices impact that.
Okay, you talked about Iraq a little bit there. What particular policies from Iraq should they adopt for Afghanistan right now?
Well, the policies we had in Iraq, what I didn't agree with most as a soldier on the ground was our ROE. Our ROE was very restrictive, and we had to have, obviously, positive identification of the enemy, which is a good thing, but I didn't agree with not being able to engage until you were already under engagement. Not really applicable to Afghanistan since we don't have anybody on the ground. Right. But we didn't really need to be involved in nation building, and I do agree with Joe Biden on that point. Our mission was not to go in there and make sure everybody was super happy and win the hearts and minds and all that. We need to go in there. We need to flush out Al Qaeda, eliminate them, and make sure they didn't have a safe haven in the country. And we did that.
Speaking of Al Qaeda and obviously all of these other terrorist networks that are going on around the world here, how do we protect ourselves here in America?
We need to have intelligence assets on the ground in the hotspots where these things are being planned. Excuse me. Without it, Joe Biden talks about having over-the-horizon capabilities, and I don't know what that entails, but without eyes and ears on the ground, how can you really know what's going on? How do we stay safe? Well, we have to rely on our intelligence assets to identify threats before they happen. And how can you do that without people on the ground?
And speaking of the ground, I believe from the reports I've seen on cable television on different networks, all of them, I think there's at least a couple of thousand Americans left there in Afghanistan. How should we safely get them out?
Well, we shouldn't have relinquished control of the airport, for starters, and 2, we shouldn't have been giving kill lists to the Taliban. If anything, we should have been going out in town and getting these people and bringing them back to the airport and telling the Taliban that they can either die.
Okay. And can you repeat that again about the no-kill list that you said?
So the Biden administration said they gave a list to the Taliban of people they wanted to get out, including Afghan allies and American citizens. Right. And I believe, I'm not sure who said it, but it was rightly called out as a kill list for the Taliban. Here's a list of people that have worked with us, that now you have their names, you have their identification, you can go out and find them and do whatever you want to them.
And instead of that, what would be your ideal plan?
My ideal plan would be, like I said, to send people out in town and go get our people. If we don't maintain control of the city, if all we have is the airport, then the plan should be to go out and get these people and not let the Taliban or any other terrorist organization stand in our way while we're doing it.
Yes, sir. And let me go back to obviously the 1st Congressional District here, because obviously you said this quote, TJ is ready to fight for you in your way of life. What is the quality of life here in the 1st Congressional District?
Quality of life is great. Like, we enjoy so many great things. Our economy is doing well. Businesses are popping up. We have a great industrial centric economy with so many great jobs. And I believe that the best way that we can serve the Low Country is to get the federal government out of the way by eliminating regulations, by eliminating taxes, by really just clearing the way for people to start business. And small business is the backbone of our economy. The harder we make it to start a small business, the harder it is for people to be employed.
What are those rich opportunities here in the 1st Congressional District for job creation, job opportunities for the economy to grow?
Not real sure.
And obviously, there's a lot of suburban moms here in the 1st Congressional District. You probably know that more than I do. But how many of those suburban moms did this Republican Party lost over the past 2 years?
I mean, I hope none. From what I understand, the suburban mom support for Donald Trump waned, and that was part of the reason he lost the election in 2020. But right now, Biden's approval rating is at an all-time low. It's around 40-something%. I heard on the radio that a significant percentage of people, something like 37 or 38% of people, now regret their vote for Joe Biden. I don't know that we've lost that in the net that we've lost any votes with the suburban mom population. Maybe they didn't like Donald Trump, so they voted for Joe Biden, or they didn't vote. But now that all those people regret their votes for Joe Biden, I think we've gained them all back.
Well, what do the suburban moms need right now?
I'm not a suburban mom. I can't answer that question.
No worries at all. Well, let me fast forward to the finish here. You said this quote: "In order to make it to the November midterms, we must win the South Carolina Republican Party primary that is obviously coming up in June of 2022. How grassroots will this campaign be a year from now?"
Literally starting from nothing. I decided I was going to do this here about a month and a half ago with very little support. Right now, we're in the popularity contest. We're not doing so well, but that's what makes it grassroots. We're getting our message out very organically, and we're doing all we can to gain support for our ideas. But that's okay. I think once this movement really takes off, it's going to take off in a very big way.
And I want to go back to Afghanistan for just a minute, TJ. I was talking with former 1st Congressional District candidate Tom Perez a couple of weeks ago about what happened in Afghanistan, and he obviously served in Afghanistan as well. But when you think of Afghanistan, how do you look at that perimeter of Kabul and Bankrupt?
What do you mean? How do I look at it?
How do you look at it from you obviously had your tours in Iraq and whatnot. How do you look at Afghanistan now with those two big metropolitan areas?
Well, I'm not really sure what your question is, to be honest with you.
Let me ask you this: after obviously what's going on in Afghanistan, do you see more threats to United States troops overseas?
Yes. Joe Biden, the current administration's actions with surrendering Afghanistan, in my opinion, have done nothing to keep us safer, especially our troops overseas. If anything, they've emboldened our enemies and weakened our allies' confidence in us. We've basically told the world that we don't have your back, and that can't. I mean, the ongoing impacts from that statement are monumental. There's nothing that has been done in Afghanistan in the last couple of weeks to make me feel like anybody, especially our troops overseas, is safer because of it.
And let me turn back to you once again. Why should people in the 1st Congressional District vote for you?
People should vote for me because I'm a working man. I'm not rich. I'm not an elite. I wasn't born. I'm not a politician's kid. I'm not a military general's kid. I'm just a regular guy trying to etch out a living for myself and my family. And my interests lie in keeping the government out of my life as much as possible.
TJ Allen, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome.